you can get more clients starting today. So let's go. Let's get to work. Okay, so I built this little chart here in a web-based application called Lucid Chart. You can get a free trial for it at their site. It's pretty cool. But here's how the basic process works, right? We begin by gaining interest by advertising. And so this is my little mock-up here of a Facebook ad, right? You got to love my copy. Attention headline readers, new body copy reveals offer and benefits. Click here to see an opt-in page. I did it that way because that's literally the framework of how I create an ad, right, on Facebook. So the person clicks or not. When they do click, of course, they're taken here. This is your opt-in page. This is a mock-up. I built this in Keynote and just kind of dragged the image in here. And basically, I have found this formula for an opt-in page works really well. You just have a very compelling headline, minimal body copy, graphical representation of the bribe, and then first name and email, and then the submit button. And that's usually it, as a matter of fact. That works really well. So then they opt in or not, right? And when they opt in, what we have here is a little screenshot of my irresistible intrigue offer. So you remember I told you about that irresistible intrigue offer methodology on the training, right? So we begin with the offer for help. Now we begin explaining the benefits of the help. That's step number 2. Then, of course, we eliminate sales fear. We talk about why we're doing it. We give them the risk reversal, and we have them qualify and then apply, right? So those are our steps there. So this can be a sales letter or a video or whatever you want it to be. But really, immediately after they opt in, they see this. Now, some of the people who see this are going to request to speak to you. They're going to immediately ask for your help, right? So from there, you're going to talk to them. And that is essentially the process. They either become a client or they don't. So in this process, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 areas where they can either do what we want them to or not. In other words, 4 areas where things can either work or they can go wrong. So let's start with area number 1 here. Where things can go wrong would be the first thing if no one clicks on your ad. So how do you fix it? Well, what you want to do is you want to change the copy and the targeting in your ad, right? So they're not clicking it for 2 reasons. 1, you're sticking the ad in front of the wrong people, or 2, you're saying the wrong stuff. Now, it's likely, more likely than not, going to be what you're saying in your ad. So let's think about this. If no one clicks your ad, how much money have you spent on advertising? 0, right? So of all the problems to have here, this is the best because it doesn't cost you anything if they don't click your ad. So when you're editing your ad and changing it, right, there are 3 things to change, and you want to test out all 3 of these things. Number 1 is the headline. Number 2, change the image. Number 3 is the body copy, right? Usually the headline and the body copy are going to be the big drivers. What I would recommend is you don't want to make it where every single person is going to click. You only want the interested people to click. So for example, if I was targeting small businesses and my average customer that I wanted was a business that did $500,000 per year, or rather $5 million per year in sales volume, I would say something like, do you do $5 million per year or more, question mark. And then my body copy might say, if so, free report reveals how to double it, or something like that. So I'm calling out to my target market in the copy. But nonetheless, you can experiment with this until you get the traffic that you're looking for. And changing this doesn't cost anything. And worst case scenario is not many people click, and that's not going to cost you a lot of money, so who really cares, right? So then we go here. The place where this can break down is, do they opt in to get your free stuff or don't they? Right? Well, how do you think we fix it if they're not opting in at an acceptable rate? You guessed it. We change the copy and the layout. Usually, this little sucker right here is going to be the big driver, right? What you say in your compelling headline. Now, a lot of times, the easiest first test to make is to have your headline match what the message is in your body copy, right? So if your body copy says, free client getting report reveals how to get more clients, you might write as your headline, free client getting report reveals how to get more clients. Here's a graphic image of the report. You can have that made on Fiverr.com if you want to for next to nothing. Make it yourself if you want to. And then name, email, submit button, right? So that's pretty simple. If they're not opting in here in the way that you want them to opt in, that's how you fix it. You just change these little things and then rerun the ad and keep doing that until you get an acceptable opt-in rate. So now is the next place that it could break down. And that is, are they requesting to talk to you? Well, I've got news for you. Most of the people who go from here to here are not going to immediately request to talk to you. Now, why is that? Why would I tell you something so seemingly negative? Well, it's human nature. They're opting in here to get a free report, and then we're saying, hey, do you want to talk? So most of them are probably interested in the help, but they're not going to immediately want to raise their hand and talk. They're like, oh, well, maybe so, but let me read the report first. That's totally cool. However, what I've found, and this is just with me personally, so I'm certainly not trying to psychically predict what's going to happen for you, roughly 1 out of 100, sometimes 2 out of 100 people who opt in here are going to immediately request your help. So right now, let's talk about that 1 to 2% who immediately request your help. So assuming these little components right here, 1, 2, and 3 are working, right? Where else could the process go wrong? Well, it could go wrong here. So this would be a case where you're talking to them, but they're not becoming clients. So how do you fix it? Well, in week 4 of our training, we really go into great depth and detail about specifically how to convert a conversation into a client relationship, right? So what I have found is when people are not converting folks on the phone, because remember, when they read this offer, you tell them how much you cost, you tell them what you do, so there's no surprises, right? So they should be well prepared to become a client when you talk here, right? The only reason they're going to be asking to speak to you is if they want you to help them, and they know clearly, because they read this, how much you cost. So if you're not closing here, it's usually a function of giving them too much information. To say, okay, here's 9 million things you can do. Are you ready? And then, of course, they're going to be like, oh, my gosh, no, let me go bury my head in the sand and keep doing what I was doing because it's less painful than taking all that action, right? So usually that's going to be the cost. If you follow the framework that I give you in week number 4 of this training, you should not have that problem. It's a very, very simple framework, and you should have situations where they either become a client, and then, of course, when they do, you start billing them, or if they don't become a client, they absolutely love you anyway. Right? They're like, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed this conversation. Listen, now is not the best time for me, but my gosh, if I ever need some help, I'll certainly reach out to you. Incidentally, what I have found is more often than not, they become a client. Not because of the spectacular nature of my salesmanship, but because they've read this, they know what I've got, they know how much I charge, and then they have answered some questions for me before I talk to them, so I've only agreed to speak with the people who I think I can help, the people who are a perfect match, right? So, if all of these pieces are working, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4. If all of these pieces are working, things should go smoothly. At any point, if they are not going smoothly, you can always look to what part of the process is breaking down and then fix it. It's either going to be you're not getting the traffic, you're not getting the opt-ins, or they're not taking you up to request a consultation, or you're talking to them and you're not closing them. Those are the only 4 possibilities of what could break down, right? But let's talk about one way to take it further. Remember when I told you that roughly 1 to 2 out of 100 people should be expected to ask you immediately for help? Well, what about those other 99, 98 people? Well, they certainly haven't forgotten about you. At this stage of the game, we're going to deploy something I didn't teach you on the webinar to increase your goodwill with these people, develop a better relationship with them, and then get them to request a conversation with you. How do you do it? Well, let me give you some pointers taken straight from the consulting class. Okay, so let's talk about the cornerstone of the whole thing. The fact that to begin the process, someone has to request some free information from you, right? The bribe, you know what I mean? The compelling bribe. We've talked about it before on the webinar and earlier in this video. So, in thinking about the bribe, it's usually going to be a PDF or something. Lately, that's been the highest converting thing, interestingly enough. It's just a plain old PDF as opposed to video series, etc. So, your bribe usually tells them how to get some results, right? So if they're interested in losing weight, for example, you might tell them, walk them through some specific steps to lose some weight, right? I mean, obviously, you would want to do that to deliver on your promises of your bribe. Okay, so we're assuming that if you do a good job in your bribe, that if they read it, they should think you're pretty awesome. Should they not? And there's no extra charge for the misspelling there in that last bullet. So yeah, if they read your bribe, they should think you're pretty awesome. Yeah, so here's something that's interesting. Guess what? Most people who opt in to get your bribe won't even read it. Now, This doesn't mean you shouldn't make it good. You should make it good. What it means is that if you depend on just the bribe by itself to convert these prospects into people who want to talk to you, then you're probably losing out on like 22%, or rather, I'm sorry, you're probably losing out on 78% of your business. And I'm getting that statistic from an actual recent test. So you probably know my cousin Trey, who is the founder of Game Academy. He has recently, in the past little period of time here, given away something along the lines of 15 or 20,000 copies of a free report that he wrote about building a game business. And he measured his stats and wrote me, actually texted me this a little while ago. He said actually 78% of the people don't even download the free report they requested, right? So, sure, we should make your bribe, your free report, as good as humanly possible for that 22% of the people who might read it. But what about the 78%, the vast majority of the people who simply just don't have time, right, to do it? They think they're going to, but then they get it and they just don't read it. Well, that's where the money is, believe it or not. That's where the easiest pool of clients to get is, and the reason it is easier to get these guys is because you can use this follow-up strategy that I've developed. So I'm going to walk you through this. It's using a document and a process that might look a little bit weird at first because you haven't actually taken the class yet. This is straight from Module 5. So let me bring up the document for you and just kind of give you a 30,000-foot view of how this works and how you can deploy it, if you want to turbocharge the efficiency of your marketing campaigns. So what I've given you here, just on the screen, is part of a bigger document that has a lot of processes outlined for the acquisition of consulting clients, right? Like what to do in specific scenarios. And this particular process, in this little diagram, is what to do if they don't immediately request a conversation with you right after they opt in, which of course we know most of them isn't. So I've called this the milestone follow-up method. And in it, you create a milestone series. So first of all, what is a milestone series? Well, you remember, people are opting in to get your bribe, and your bribe is walking them through how to do something, right? Well, I refer to each step that they must take in order to get the results they want. I refer to that as a milestone, right? So if we were talking to them about how to get a website, and that was our free report, our first step would be to choose a domain name. Our second step would be to get a hosting account. Our third step would be to build a homepage. And our fourth step would be to upload it, right? Well, each one of those steps is a milestone. So here's the deal. If you want to really do a good job of turning opt-ins into fans who are more likely to request your help and also build a massive amount of trust and goodwill with them, and also simultaneously demonstrate your expertise and credibility and have them think of you as a trusted advisor and expert in your field, then this little series is for you. So what you do is, let's say 2 days after they've opted in to get your report, which probably they didn't read, you're going to send them an email to some content that walks them through milestone number 1. Now, typically, I like to do this in video, and there are 2 types of videos to make. There's screen cam videos like this one. So right now, as I make this video, I'm sitting in a pair of surf shorts and a t-shirt that I've had for like 5 years that looks horrible. I've got an old crappy looking hat on, and you never know because you don't see me, right? It's just me showing you my computer screen. So these are very, very effective. The other type of video is the live action video with you talking direct to camera, and those work pretty well too. So if you're weirded out about making videos, stick with screen cams like this. It's pretty simple. So what you do in your first video is you walk them through in greater detail how to do milestone number 1. And then at the end of that video, at the end of that content, you say, listen, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. And if you would like me to personally help you get result, then we need to talk. And that is your segue right there into your irresistible intrigue offer. But instead of putting it in print, you just say it in your video, right? Or conversely, if you absolutely don't want to make videos, then you could just make your milestone number 1 content a long article on your webpage with a written out irresistible intrigue offer at the end. And the way you segue is, I hope you've enjoyed learning this as much as I've enjoyed making it for you, and how would you like me to help you for free? And that is just the beginning of your irresistible intrigue offer, like what I taught you on the webinar, right? So what's going to happen after they consume this content, whether it's going to a website to read it or watch a video? Well, they're either going to request the conversation or not. Well, if they request the conversation, You schedule them to talk to them, and you remove them from getting the rest of these milestones. You take them out of that sequence. But if they don't, automatically the next day, you're going to send them an email with a link to Milestone 2's content. So in our little Get a Website example, milestone number 1 would have been choose a domain name. Milestone number 2 would have been how to pick a host. So your email might say, hi, Bob, I just made this video for you. It shows you how to find the best web host, in parentheses, depending on what it is you want to do with your website. I hope you enjoy it. Talk soon, Frank. That's your whole email. That's no spammy, nothing lame. Just enjoy this free thing. They go to it. Your video says, hey, everybody, this is Frank. I'm going to walk you through how to choose a web host. So the first thing you want to do is really make sure you know what you want to do with your website. So for a basic website, I recommend XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Right? At the end of that content, you want to say it with me? You segue into your irresistible intrigue offer by saying, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. And how would you like for me to help you get your website up and running for free? I've set aside some time to talk to you about finding the best website and building the best website you possibly could for your business, and I'd be delighted to help you come up with a plan for doing that for free. Now, if you're wondering why I would do this, and boom, so I'm just kind of ad-libbing the irresistible intrigue offer process, but you see how that would work, right? It's just super simple. So at the end of that video, they're either going to request a conversation with you. At that time, you would schedule them and turn them into a customer or not. And if they don't request a conversation, guess what they get? Milestone number 3, right? So as many milestones are in your report, as many steps as you walk them through in your report, you can make a separate video, right? So what happens if they still don't request a conversation? Well, I have 10 angles in the class, approach angles, what do I call them, to help you present the exact same offer 10 different ways so you never burn out your list. So you remember those guys who say the fortune is in the follow-up? Well, they're right. You know, it really, really is in the follow-up.